All right, here we go again. I just ran across another one of those $1 million clickbait articles on the homepage of a major news site. It was titled "The Stark Reality of What a 1.5 Million Retirement Looks Like in 2026." I mean, with a title like that, I am in before I even clicked the link. I was looking at that headline thinking, oh shit, here we go with the fear-mongering. A stark reality. There is no way this logic is going to hold up under a microscope. And to be fair, maybe that's not the most unbiased way to start reading. But after finishing it, man, my gut was right. This whole piece was poorly framed, poorly executed, and it falls right into that toxic category of telling people that even with a massive stack, that's probably not enough. Hey guys, what is up? I am Aaron and welcome back to the channel. Let's hang out and talk about why this article is absolute garbage. Here's the part that really caught my attention and made me do a double take. The author says if you take a standard 4% withdrawal from a $1.5 million portfolio, that gives you $60,000 a year, okay? That's a conservative assumption. So far, so good. I am with them, but then they hit you with this crazy claim that after federal taxes, you only left with $46,800. That was the exact moment where I was like, wait a minute, we need to pause and we need to walk through this together. Let us tackle the tax math first, because this is the most glaring, embarrassing error in the entire article. Yes, if you have 1.5 million sitting in a traditional 401k or a traditional IRA, any withdrawals you make are taxed as ordinary income, so that part of the premise is technically correct. And yes, if you look at the 2026 tax brackets, an income of $60,000 could technically push a portion of your money into the 22% bracket. But here's where the article completely falls apart and loses all credibility. It assumes that you pay 22% on every single dollar of that $60,000, leading to a massive tax bill of $13,200. That is just not how our tax system works. Peace to anyone who thinks it's that simple. We have a progressive tax system, which means your first dollars are taxed at those tiny, lower rates. Only the very top portion of your income ever reaches those higher brackets. And on top of that, we have deductions that we absolutely have to consider to get the real picture in retirement, especially in 2026. Those deductions get a whole lot bigger and more interesting. At age 65 and older, there are now 3 specific layers of deductions we need to account for. First, we have the base standard deduction, which for single filers is $16,100. And for married couples, it's $32,200. Then we have the age-based add-on, which for singles is $2,050, and for married folks, it's $1,650 per person. And then we have the new OBBA senior bonus deduction, which is another $6,000 per person. If we add all of these deductions together, a single filer qualifies for $24,150 in total deductions. For a married couple, that number jumps to a staggering $47,500. So let us take a second and actually run the real numbers on this income using the 2026 brackets for a single filer age 65 or older. If they have that $60,000 ordinary income, they would actually end up with a net income of about $56,000 after taxes. If we look at a married couple, both 65 or older, their net income would be just under $59,000. Keep in mind that this new $6,000 senior deduction is a massive game changer separate from the standard stuff. So while the article scared everyone by saying $60,000 becomes $46,000, the reality is you rekeeping nearly $10,000 to $12,000 more. That is a massive difference right off the bat, and it truly matters for your quality of life. Yes, we have to factor in taxes, but there is a giant gap between what people are being told and what they actually get to spend. And this is all before we even start talking about Social Security or smart tax planning. So right out of the gate, this article is looking a little wobbly and honestly pretty irresponsible. Now, could taxes be higher than what I just showed you? Absolutely. But for that to happen, you need to have other income sources rolling in, and this is something else this article just completely ignores. Like, it doesn't exist. If you add in Social Security, a pension, or even a little side hustle, yes, those streams will stack on top. And sure, that might push you into a higher bracket, but let us be real here. If your taxes are going up because your income is higher, that is a high-class problem to have. Let us actually add in Social Security and look at a single household to see how the math changes. We assume this person gets $2,000 a month in Social Security, which is $24,000 a year. They add that to their $60,000 IRA withdrawal, making their total pre-tax income $84,000. Now, this is where things get a little bit more complex because Social Security isn't taxed like a regular paycheck. It's governed by something called provisional income, which determines how much of that check the government actually touches. In simple terms, you don't automatically pay tax on all of it, and often a huge chunk remains tax-free. Even in this case, a single filer with $84,000 in total income would still see an after-tax income of closer to $77,000. Their effective tax rate is only about 8.5%. Let that sink in. Even after adding Social Security, they are still paying less than 10% in total taxes. Now let's take this one step further and look at a dual income household. Let us Let's assume both spouses claim Social Security and get $2,000 a month each. That is $48,000 a year in benefits plus their $60,000 portfolio withdrawal. Now we are looking at a total household income of $108,000. For this married couple, their total federal tax bill would be just under $6,000. That gives them an effective tax rate of about 5.4%. This couple has over $100,000 to spend, and their tax bill is less than a cheap used car. This is literally the opposite of what that doom and gloom article was trying to sell us. The reality is most retirees just have one account or one single income source anyway. They have a mix of Social Security, maybe an annuity, and hopefully some money in a brokerage or Roth account. All of these different streams stack up, but many of them are taxed in much more favorable ways. For example, money in a Roth account is totally tax-free when you pull it out. So a household with $1.5 million saved up is likely to have way more spending power than these articles suggest. Now, let us talk about withdrawal rates, because this is where the narrative shifts from bad math to subtle manipulation. The article suggests a safe withdrawal rate of 3.5 to 4% for a 30-year retirement. To be fair, that's standard advice. I'm not going to argue with that. But then they push it further and say you should consider part-time. Work to drive that rate down to 3%. Look, I love the idea of a phased retirement and staying active if that brings you joy. If working a few hours a week gives you structure and a little extra cash, I say go for it. But forcing a 3% withdrawal rate, that is where it becomes highly questionable. There is no data saying you absolutely must go down to 3% to survive a 30-year retirement. If we look at forward-looking research like Monte Carlo simulations, the experts suggest 3.7 to 3.9% is perfectly fine. And that assumes a totally rigid inflation-adjusted withdrawal with zero flexibility. But if you look at historical data, you're relooking at more like 4.5 or 4.7%. If you add just a little bit of flexibility, like not taking a raise in a bad market year, the numbers say you can safely pull 5% or more. On a $1.5 million portfolio, a 5% rate gives you $75,000 a year. That is a $15,000 difference compared to the 4% rule, and it changes everything. More often than not, you aren't going to spend the exact same amount every single year for 3 decades. Life doesn't work that way, and the data shows most people actually spend less as they get older. That built in reduction in spending adds a massive layer of safety that these stark reality articles never mention. Let us take this even further and put some real pressure on the $1.5 million plan. Most planners assume you retire at 65 and need the money to last until you reach 95. That's a safe way to plan for longevity risk. But what if you want to bail out of the rat race earlier? Let us say you retire at 55 with that $1.5 million portfolio. In this scenario, you have no other income until Social Security kicks in at age 62. We can use the rule of 55 to get to that money early without penalties. Let us look at this in 2 phases. Starting with the bridge years, from 55 to 62, the portfolio has to cover 100% of the bills for those 7 years. If we use a flexible 4.7% withdrawal, this individual has an annual income of over $70,000. Then at age 62, Social Security turns on and starts providing $16,800 a year. Suddenly, the portfolio only needs to cover $53,200 to keep the same lifestyle. The withdrawal rate drops from 4.7% down to a super safe 3.5%. This strategy creates a massive margin of safety right when you need it most. So even in a stressful early retirement scenario, this $1.5 million stack is a powerhouse. It can easily support a lifestyle of $65,000 to $75,000 a year without breaking a sweat. If I am being generous, this article was clumsy, but if I am being honest, it was intentionally misleading. The tax math was wrong, it ignored Social Security, and it framed part-time work as a necessity rather than a choice. It presents $1.5 million as fragile and tiny, when in reality, it's a rock-solid foundation with proper context. That portfolio can support a much stronger and more flexible life than they want you to think. You could easily have a household living on $100,000 a year once you stack all the pieces together. I really struggle with these articles because they keep moving the goalposts on everyday people. First, $1 million is enough, then 1.5 is enough. Then they say 2 million is the bare minimum. It's all rooted in fear, and we don't need more fear. We need more data and more honest conversations. If you do have a big chunk in a traditional account, one thing you should actually think about is Roth conversions, because that portfolio is going to keep growing, and eventually the government will force you to take money out. Strategic Roth conversions can help you smooth out that tax bill and keep more of your hard-earned cash. If you have 1.5 million, you don't have a problem, you have a massive opportunity. So what do you think about these kinds of articles? Do they stress you out, or do you see through the noise? Leave a comment down below and let's talk about it. I post new videos every single week, so if you got anything out of this, please give it a like and hit that subscribe button. Or if you have a friend who is stressing about their retirement numbers, send them this video to calm their nerves. I'll see you guys soon. Peace.